I'm transforming this historic train carriage into a tiny home. I'm using permaculture principles, starting off here with a site analysis. I've discussed sun and wind, and today I'm going to be talking about water and drainage. The train carriage sits on a gradual slope, and the soil type is heavy compacted clay. This means the water runs off really quickly, ideal for building because water doesn't pool. However, if we lose this slope, compacted heavy clay will hold this water. Over time, boggy footings can compromise the concrete piers that hold up the train carriage, as well as future stumps for decks or any other structural elements. It's therefore critical that any future earthworks retains a slight slope in the landscape to ensure that water doesn't pool. Now, let's talk about water supply. The train carriage is not connected to the mains water, so it'll have to capture its own water or find water from elsewhere on the farm. My overall strategy for water supply is to provide water passively where possible and pump when necessary. The farm's header dam is just to the south of the train carriage up the hill. It passively irrigates our fruit and nut trees down the property, as well as providing water for our sheep. It is a great resource for the farm, but not so much the train carriage, as it's roughly level with the height of the carriage. Therefore, if we wanted to use some of that water to irrigate the garden around the train carriage, we'd either have to pump it or would have to move it manually. Some passive irrigation options that we could consider is to divert water that's running along the external road. We could use swales to help slow down water in certain areas of the garden, or we could employ a grey water system. However, that inevitably leads us to the question of where our drinking and our general household water will come from. Now, this is a tricky one because the rooftop of the carriage is not that big, so to supply the carriage with water passively, we might need to extend the roof surface area of the train carriage. And even then, I wouldn't necessarily want to rely on this water supply. So I think at the very least, we have to have some backup options. Two options come to mind. One is to pump water from the work shed, which is down the hill. And the other option is to run a pipe to the shearing shed, where there's currently a roof, but there's no water catchment. So we'd also have to set up a tank and then also a pump that would then pump water from the shearing shed to the train carriage. That brings us to the end of the water section of this site analysis. Next, I'll be looking at access, views, and privacy. Follow along to see where the rest of this design goes.